Hello children. Today we are going to start the second part of the story Expert Detective. In this story we can see the curiosity of Nishad and Maya to catch the crook, which is Mr. Nath. So let's start the story Expert Detective.
Now, I wrote in large block letters, catching a crook. Expert detectives Nishad and Maya Pandit by appointment to the whole world. Now, here you can see by appointment means officially chosen by someone important. Then I began writing. About half an hour later, I turned towards Seven, who was lying on his tummy, chin cupped in his palms, reading comics. Want to hear what I have written? I asked. He looked up questioningly. I have listed all the facts we know about Mr. Nath, which might help us to trap him, I said. Want to hear? Seven nodded. Fact number 1. I read. His name is Mr. Nath. We must discover his first name. Do you think that's his real name, Maya? Nishad asked. Probably not. I said, most crooks have an alias. I added a big question mark after Nath. Fact number 2, I read on. The tenants at Shankar House say he is mad, strange, and unfriendly. Number 3, he doesn't talk to anyone and is mannerless. But he did talk to us, Maya, and Mama says he is very polite, Nishad interrupted. He only talked to us because he had to, I said. And since he was under Mama's medical treatment, he had to be polite. Fact number 4. He doesn't receive any letters, Seven nodded. Number 5. He's been living in room number 10 of Shankar House for more than a year. I continued. Number 6. He doesn't work and sits in his room all day. Number 7. The kids in Shankar House and even some of the grown-ups are scared of him. Number 8. He has no visitors except for a spectacles fair fat man who visits him on Sundays for lunch. Number 9. Food and tea are taken to his room by Ramesh from the restaurant downstairs. He doesn't care what he eats. Pay his bills immediately and tips well. That ends my list. Have I forgotten anything, Seven? Maya was making full use of rainy day leave from the school by writing down all the investigation she had done in order to trap Mr. Nath, whom she supposed to be a crook. She was seated on her study table and was writing down the facts one by one. Now here you can see Nishad was in very calm mood. He was lying on the bed. You can see over here. And Maya continuously writing something. She was seated on her study table and was writing down the facts one by one, while Nishad was lying on his stomach on the bed beside her reading a comic book. Maya asked Nishad if he wanted to hear what she had written about Mr. Nath. After receiving the nodded approval from Nishad, Maya told him that she had noted down all the facts in a serial order which would help anyone to help reach the conclusion that Mr. Nath was a crook who was in hiding living like a common person. She state She started to explain or read out all the facts to Nishad, number wise. First of all, we must find out his first name because we know him by his surname Nath and nothing else. Nishad too was inquisitive about Nath's name and asked his sister if Mr. Nath was his real name. Maya's response was that most of the crooks used an alias or a false name in order to hide their real identity. And this was also true in the case of Mr. Nath. Here you can see. Probably not. I said most crook have an alias. Alias mean an alternate name, or you can say those who want to hide their identity, they are using their different name. I added a big question mark after Nath. Now here you can see one by one Maya was trying to give evidence, and she continued that the second fact which she had noted down was based on the information she had gathered from her neighbors, the landlord of Mr. Nath. Now here you can see in fact number 2, I read on the tenants at the Shankar house say he is mad, strange and unfriendly. Now here Maya was talking about the number 2 evidence or fact which she had noted down was based on the information which she had gathered for her neighbors, the landlord of Mr. Nath. They were of the conclusion that because Mr. Nath behaved in a peculiar manner, he was more of a madman. He was not a normal person. He was behaving like a strange person, very unfriendly, not ready to become friend to anyone. Now she proceeded from number 3. He doesn't talk to anyone and is mannerless. Now here the third fact which Maya stated was that he does not talk to anyone. And we see that this statement was true because we hardly find Mr. Nath talking to anyone. On the contrary, he used to keep to himself locked up in his room, in his own room, and rarely come out or meet people. To this statement, Nishad was quick to respond and said that Mr. Nath did talk to us and he was polite in doing so. Maya had all the answer to Nishad's statements and replied that Mr. Nath had to be polite to us because we are the children of his doctor. So he is under obligation to speak politely with us. So every time, whenever Maya gave some facts about Mr. Nath, always Nishad ready to deny. Now here you can see the fact number 4. Fact number 4, he doesn't receive any letters. 7 nodded again. Here Nishad was not very much satisfied with this statement. The fourth statement was also based on pure observation. Maya said that Mr. Nath does not receive any letters. The meaning of this is Mr. Nath does want anyone to find out where he is living. So, how can anyone send letters or mails to him? Now, again, Nishad was not agreed. Number 5. He's been living in room number 10 of Shankar house for more than a year. I continued. Number 6. He doesn't work and sits in his room all day. Now, the fifth statement or fact that Mr. Nath had been staying at a Shankar house, her neighborhood, for more than a year now. The sixth fact, he does not work in his room all the day. From where is he paying all the money, the bills, the rents, etc.? Now the big question is there. Now here you can see number 7. The kids in the Shankar house and even some of the grown-ups are scared of him. Now again Maya gave a number 7 facts about Mr. Nath. The 7 facts all the children and grown-ups of the Shankar house, the landlord house, are afraid of Mr. Nath. Mr. Nath did not mix up or socialized with people, which added to his scroudled personality and forced people to be suspicious of him without any justified reason. Now, number 8. Number 8, he was no visitors except for a spectacle fair fat man who visits him on Sundays for lunch. Now here you can see fact number 8. Maya wrote was that Mr. Nath had no visitor at all except to the fair and fat man who visited Mr. Nath every Sunday. Just like Mr. Nath, this man was unknown to all the people who saw him visiting Mr. Nath every Sunday. Now, here number 9. Food and tea are taken to his room by Ramesh from the restaurant downstairs. He doesn't care what he eats, pays his bill immediately, and tips well. That ends my list. Have I forgotten anything, 7? Now here, fact number 9 was based on the information collected from Ramesh, who worked in the restaurant downstairs in the neighborhood. Mr. Nath was least concerned with the quality or the taste of the meals he ate. Whatever was brought to him by Ramesh, he was quick to pay the bills and also tipped Ramesh handsomely. After reading out all the 9 facts to Nishad, Maya asked if she had forgotten anything. Now here she has written all 9 facts about Mr. Nath. First was, here you can see number 1, I read, his name is Mr. Nath. We must discover his first name. And the second number was, I read on the tenants and the Shankar house say he's mad, strange about his behavior. Number 3 was he doesn't talk to anyone, very unfriendly, mannerless. And number 4 was he doesn't receive any letters. Number 5, he has been living in room number 10 of Shankar house for more than a year. Or now, number 6, he doesn't work and sits in the room all day. Number 7 was the kids in Shankar house and even some of the grown ups are scared of him. Number 8, he has no visitor except for a spectral fair fat man who visit him on the Sunday for lunch. Now, number 9 was also very suspicious. Food and tea are taken to his room by Ramesh from the restaurant downstairs, and he tipped well and he pays bill without doing any work. So, these 9 facts Maya written and asked his brother that something left. If something left, please tell me. Nishad had obviously not been paying too much attention to my list of facts. All he could say was, poor man Maya, he must be so lonely if he doesn't have any friends. How can a crook have friends, idiot? I almost shouted. At least he has one friend, the one who meets him on Sunday, said Nishad. A brilliant thought occurred to me just then. That man must be Mr. Nath, accomplice in the crime. I said, maybe he keeps all the loot and he comes now and then to give part of it to his partner, Mr. Nath, for expenses. That's it. I am sure I am right. If you insist on calling him a criminal, I don't think I want to discuss anything with you, Maya, said Nishad angrily. He can't be such a bad man if he give Ramesh such generous trips. Ramesh probably knows something about his past, so Mr. Nath must be bribing him to keep quiet. I said. Nishad glared at me with his arm tightly crossed across his chest. I was beginning to get fed up with him. How can we make any progress with our investigation if you take that attitude 7? I asked. I'll cooperate only if you give up this idea about him being an escaped crook, said 7. You really make me angry. I almost hit him. I make you angry, you stupid oaf. I shouted. You make me mad. What is the point of all these inquiries if he is not a crook? If you think he is a nobody, what's the idea of bothering about him? Please tell me. Now, here you can see the conversation after getting the facts with Nishad and Maya. While Maya had been stating all the facts she had noted down, Nishad was paying very little attention to his elder sister. And at the end, in his reply to Maya's question, who was the fact compiled, he said, how lonely was Mr. Nath without any friends? The answer from her brother annoyed Maya, who shouted at her brother, saying that Thieves and crooks do not have any friends. Don't you know that? Nishad replied, Mr. Nath does have a friend. The fact, the fat gentleman who visit him every Sunday. Now here they arguing to each other because always Maya insisted that the Mr. Nath was a crook, and always Nishad nodded or disagree with that statement. And here the Maya got angry. At least he has one friend, the one who meets him on Sunday. A brilliant thought occurred to me just then. That man must be Mr. Nath, accomplice in the crime, I said. Maybe he keeps all the loot and he comes now and then to give part of it to his partner, Mr. Nath, for expensive. That's it. I'm sure I'm right. Now, here you can see no sooner had Nishad replied about the visitor that another thought struck Maya. She informed Nishad that this person was none other than a crook himself, who was hand in gloves with Mr. Nath. Maybe he keeps all the stolen wealth and visits every Sunday to give away the share to Mr. Nath, his partner in the theft. That is why we see Mr. Nath manage his expensive very well without working or earning any money. The way Maya kept on accusing Mr. Nath annoyed Nishad. And here you can see, if you insist on calling him a criminal, I don't think I want to discuss anything with you, Maya, said Nishad angrily. He can't be such a bad man if he gives Ramesh a generous trip. Now here again, Nishad giving another concept about the Mr. Nath. And now here you can see the way Maya kept on accusing Mr. Nath annoyed Nishad, who had different opinion about Mr. Nath. He said to his sister, if she kept on calling Mr. Nishad, Mr. Nath, a crook, he would not talk to her on this matter anymore. He behaves in such a nice way with Ramesh and also gives generous tips for his services. How can he be a bad man? Insisted Nishad. But Maya was adamant to prove Mr. Nath a thief. Now here you can see, if you insist on calling him a criminal, I don't think I want to discuss anything with you, Maya, said Nishad angrily. He can't be such a bad man if he gives Ramesh a generous trip. Ramesh probably knows something about his past. So Mr. Nath must be bribing him to keep quiet, I said. Now again, Maya accused Mr. Nath. She said, her imagination was sky high in this matter and new stories were popping up in her mind. She came up with yet another theory. She stated that Ramesh is also a part of conspiracy. He knows a lot about the dark side of Mr. Nath, and that is why Mr. Nath tips or gives him so much of money to keep his secret from getting revealed before the public. Now here Maya made another story about Mr. Nath. Mr. Nath is bribing Ramesh not to let out his true identity. This statement of Maya made Nishad all the more angry. The difference of opinion between Nishad and Maya was building up, and Maya requested his brother to be attentive and believe her so that their investigation catching Mr. Nath proceeded correctly. Now, here you can see how can we make any progress with our investigation if you take that attitude, Seven? I asked. I'll cooperate only if you give up this idea about him being an escaped crook, said Seven. You are really make me angry. I almost hit him. I make you angry. You stupid oaf, I shouted. You make me mad. What is the point of all these inquiries if he is not a crook? If you think he is nobody, what is the idea of bothering about him? Please tell me. Now, here the Nishad was arguing with Maya, and he said, Maya, Nishad never liked the idea of Mr. Nath being called a thief, and he asked his sister to stop calling Mr. Nath a thief. If she wanted to have his cooperation in the investigation of finding out more about Mr. Nath. The difference of opinion had reached the summit, and both the investigators were getting agitated while exchanging their views on Mr. Nath. Hearing that, Nishat was of the opinion that Mr. Nath was not a thief. Maya grew annoyed and shouted at her younger brother, what is the use of this investigation if Nath is not a crook? All this is being done that we can prove before the people that Mr. Nath is a thief who is hiding in our neighborhood as a common man. Now I am going to read the next paragraph. Nishad looked thoughtful. I'd like to find out why he is so thin and why he is so lonely. I want to know why he doesn't have any friends and lives alone. Try to understand, Seven. I told him if he lived in a Shankar house for a year and hasn't made a single friend, there is something wrong. He is obviously scared that someone will recognize him and give him up to the cops. Maybe no one's tried to make friends with him, Nishad protested. Why? Why should anyone bother? You have seen what a nasty bear he is, I said. I don't care, said Nishad stubbornly. I like him. I am going to try and to be his friend. Friends with the crook? Ha! You are crazy, Seven. I said, the cops will take you to jail with him. Do you want that to happen, you idiot? Nishad merely glared at me and quietly walked out of the room. My theories seemed to have made no impression on him at all. Now here we can see Nishad's lines of investigation was very different to that of his sister Maya. Nishad wanted to find out about the personal facts of Mr. Nath. Why he was so lonely, sickly. Why does he live without any friends? But Maya insisted on a different line of investigation and said to Nishad, "Why has Mr. Nath not made a single friend since he had been living in our neighbor's house? It is only because he does not want anyone to find him out. He is scared to make friends with others people because when they see him, they will recognize him and inform the police, who will eventually arrest him for the crime he had committed in the past before coming our locality." Now, in this paragraph, you can see the conversation. One conversation you can see of Maya always accusing Mr. Nath, but at the same time, Nishad always disagree about the statement of Maya. So we will continue this chapter. Remaining part of the chapter we will discuss or explain in next video. So till then, bye bye and take care and read this chapter again.